Peace, everyone. Welcome back. Unmask Art here. There was some technical difficulties for some reason. My audio was like echoing and repeating for some unknown reason. Hopefully, I have resolved the issue. So I apologize for the awkward intro for those of you that did not catch that previous stream. As you can see, I did start and got some things started for this project. So let me just recap quickly what I had done before the technical difficulties. I took my black and I outlined the some of my line art, and then I added some of the blue. Let me go over the colors once again. So I'm using the 1102 and 120 colors. I have this gray, this is 1056 that I'll be using, and then I have black and white, and these are all just the Prismacolor color pencils. Hello there, Sketch. I am doing very well. Oh, that's cool that Maleficent is your favorite. This was a request from one of the art club members to do, and I really liked that idea because it has no normal skin tone. It has just like white skin from makeup. So I thought it'd be a really interesting challenge to do because I do a lot of normal portraits with just, everyday skin. And since this one has that kind of unique, uh, like unnatural white porcelain skin, I thought it'd be kind of a cool challenge. Anyways, before the stream was being weird, I was just applying some of the blue in these highlighted spots, and so I'm going to continue that. And as usual, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. And I'm going to do a layer of the blue in here as well. Appreciate you guys letting me know about the audio issues. That was a very strange technical issue. I had never, it was weird because um, like the audio was repeating and it seemed to be coming directly from my microphone, which was weird because I unplugged my microphone and it would still repeat. And when I checked my audio input on my computer, and even with my audio interface turned off and everything, like there was no way that there was sound going to my computer, my input was still repeating. So it was very, very strange. So hopefully restarting my computer resolved that issue for good, because that was a weird one. All right, now that I have applied some blue, I'm going to add some of the green color. This is the 120. This color comes in a little bit. Real quick, I just want to mention that this Friday I will be doing the live critique session. So if you want to submit some of your artwork for the live critique, join the Facebook family group, the Unmask family Facebook group. I have a link for that in the description, and you'll see the announcement for this Friday's live critique session. And I will be doing that live stream in a couple of days. So I look forward to seeing some of the work that you guys have produced over the past month since the previous live critique session. Let's see, let's go a little bit more green in here. Just throw in some more green. There we go. A little bit over here too. All right, now I'm gonna just switch back to the black, and it's gonna be pretty easy from this point forward. Just going to be filling everything in with a hefty layer of black. One of the things to keep in mind is that at no point am I pressing hard into my paper. It's one of my biggest rules with colored pencils, and all of my students in chat will know exactly what I'm about to say. But for those of you that don't know or never heard me say it, the number one rule of colored pencils is to never press harder than what is necessary for the color to show up. It's much more important to just keep a nice, consistent, light pressure on your pencil and use repetition of layering to cover up the paper, not pressure. And there's several reasons why that is the number one rule. The first is that it doesn't speed up the process. So that's one thing. But the main reason is that you don't want your hand to hurt. Colored pencils are a slow medium, so there's no reason for you to make your hand hurt by unnecessarily pressing hard. How do I store all of my art pieces? I would say the easy answer to that question is that I don't. I have a drawer, well, I have several drawers that beneath my bed, and quite literally one of those drawers is just full of my artwork, and it's not organized. Aside from the pastel projects, it's not really protected in any way. I pretty much finish a project, open the drawer, and just toss it in there. Some of my work sits in between the cover and backing of like old the gummed pads of paper that you get. Like after I've used all the paper, I just kind of stuff my drawings into it. That's really it. I probably the worst artist ever when it comes to taking care of the finished artwork, because the reality is I just don't take care of it at all. Pretty much just toss it in the drawer and forget that it ever exists. Until somebody asks me about it. Every once in a while I get questions about some of my old work. But I almost never pull it out for any reason except to try to make more room for my pastel paintings. Because I need to figure out what to do with my pastel paintings, because I have a lot of them, and the amount of space that I have left for new ones is extremely limited, and it's running out very, very quickly. Hello, Shell. Good to see you. Oh, and Chrissy, good to see you as well. Will I be using a sepia or indigo blue to deepen the black? No, I will not be. I've never had an issue getting very, very dark black with the Prismacolor black. Has always worked very nicely for me. Get nice, dark, deep tones. I will be blending with solvent, which is also helpful in getting those really rich, dark colors. Oh, hey there, Cece. Been a while. The paper that I'm using is the Lennox 100. So Lennox 100 paper is what I'm using right now. And it is for surely becoming one of my favorite papers for colored pencils. It's a really, really nice textured paper. Has good density for, many layers. Using solvent to blend, it's a great paper. I highly recommend it. At least to test it out, because everybody's choice on paper is a little bit different. But this paper I do like a lot. Sometimes the texture feels like a little bit too much, which some people may not like with their colored pencil work. So that's why I say, maybe just test it out, get a small pieces, and see if you like the texture of it. Because you can actually see, as I've applied this black relatively generously here, and all those little speckles that kind of creates that texture there. That isn't the colored pencil, that's actually the paper texture. Those little speckles, the kind of the deep divots of the paper. But when you fill those divots in and smooth it out with like blending with solvent or whatever, it's really, really nice looking. It's one of the best as far as heavy layer color pencils. Definitely one of the best looking. Oh, you never caught me live before? Well, I'm glad you were able to. Do I have a link for the paper? I don't have a link. I do on my website, but only on the projects page, or the tutorials, like when you click on a project. So you'd have to be an art club member to get to that part where I have the link. But I'll put a link. I'll get a link. Unless somebody, if somebody could put a link in the chat, that'd be great. I get this paper from Jackson's Art Supply, so if somebody could grab a link for it really quick, that'd be great. I don't know. I don't know if the links are working in the chat, because I had someone post a link the other day that didn't show up. Sometimes the live chat is weird, and I don't know how to change those settings. Never looked into it before. I'll tell you what, after I fill this in with black, I have to use solvent to blend it, and then I have to wait for it to dry. So perhaps while it's drying, I'll jump over and grab a link for the paper. How did I go about learning how to draw realism? Well, I've been drawing for 25 some years. I've been drawing since I was about 6 years old, ever since I was in the second grade. And I never concerned myself with a style for a very, very long time until I was in high school. And I just drew what I liked. I just focused on drawing what I liked and trying to learn how to draw what I liked better by emulating other people. Realism didn't really start to be a thing for me until I was in college. So I would have been like 22. So about 10 years ago is when realism kind of took its preference in my work. And I started small. One of the things that really helped improve my realism was to start with like single objects, still life. Still life objects are one of the best types of subjects to work on, because you just get a ton of variety of colors and textures. And when you have to deal with different colors, textures, and everything, you learn techniques, universal techniques that you can apply everywhere. And so as I just worked on those things, I would, with every project that I would do, I would learn a new technique or just a new sort of idea, and then I would be able to apply those ideas to other projects, even if they were of different subjects. But mainly it's the practice in color that benefits you the most. And then, of course, I started teaching art and how to draw and everything. And you learn a lot. You learn a lot by teaching because you are constantly going over what you know. And when you're constantly going over what you know, you quickly discover what you don't know. And a lot of learning and growing as an artist is really just discovering what it is you don't know. Not to say that you have to teach to get better, but if you can find somebody that teaches the way that you learn, it doesn't necessarily have to be me. I do my best to be able to teach anybody anything, but I know everyone learns differently. But hopefully, whoever it is that you can learn from can teach you things that you don't know. More along the lines, teach you the things you don't know that you don't know, not the things that you don't know. If you get what I'm saying there. Alrighty. Well, time to bust out the solvent and blend this first layer out. As you can see, there is absolutely nothing difficult about what I've done so far. Little splashes of blue and green, and then just a very broad layer of black. I'm using Zest It for my solvent. I've been using this for several years now. I've used many different brands and types of solvent for blending colored pencils, and I can say that I've never once come across a solvent that makes any difference whatsoever. So it's not like you have to use this particular brand to get the results that you will see in this project. I've used no-name off-brand solvents before, and they worked just as well. they just smelled a little worse. So when it comes to solvent, I've always just recommended the solvent that you can tolerate using that doesn't bother you. I think that's the most important quality of a solvent. That, and as long as it's not baby oil. Of course, over the years, it's been nice to no longer come across the baby oil solvent users. That's good to hear, Susan. I still struggle on how to pick the colors. I have a tutorial. It's an older tutorial. It's how to color everything, a guide to creating an effective color palette. I recommend that. It's an oldie, but everything in that tutorial is still what I do today after all these years. Get a lot of I get a lot of people asking about how I choose the colors and whatnot. You know, you practice the foundation of what I cover in that tutorial that I just mentioned. You practice that for all of your projects, and you know, after a few projects, you're just going to get a good rhythm in it, picking colors and stuff. And one thing, just to be clear, like that tutorial, if you do go and watch it, even if you're in the midst of a project, for instance, and you've selected the colors exactly the way that I describe in that tutorial, there's still a ton of flexibility to adjust colors later on. The truth is, sometimes you just don't get it right the first time, and you have to make adjustments later on. And I still have to make adjustments later on. Because sometimes colors, they just end up looking a little bit different when you apply them to your project, and they're right next to each other. So you just got to stay flexible. The other thing, I find it more common with colored pencils than other mediums, and that is the use of way too many colors. Like I've seen people, you know, they're working on, just say a portrait, for instance, and they have like 30 pencils. And I can say that I've never used 30 pencils in a single project. It's just you don't need 30 different pencils to complete one project, because it just overcomplicates it. So I stress the importance of minimizing your color palette in the beginning, and then only once you've maximized the potential of those colors do I suggest adding other colors. And even in that case, you're looking at like 3, maybe 4 additional colors beyond that. And then at the end of a project, even one of the most colorful projects, you're looking a maximum of like 17 colors. And it's been a while. It's been a while since I've had 17 distinct colors in a project that I needed. What brush type and size am I using? Right now I'm using a number 4 synthetic bristled round brush. And I use a synthetic bristled brush because it doesn't absorb, like a fibrous brush will absorb the solvent. I prefer my bristles to not absorb the solvent. So that's why it's synthetic. I choose a round brush because I like the precision of the tip and the ability to blend a slightly larger area using the side. So it's quite versatile. The other thing is that it also doesn't hold a lot of solvent. So you do have to dip it quite a bit, but I like that control because I want to use as little as solvent as I can. And the fact that this small brush doesn't hold a lot is helpful. Usually I use a number 8 round brush, but I've been liking the smaller brush and just blending slower. The other thing, I never clean my brushes. I only have 2 of them that I use with colored pencils. I've never cleaned them with like soap and water. Just dip them in solvent. Just dip them in the solvent and maybe wipe them off with a paper towel. But that's about as much as cleaning them as I have ever done. Can you still add colors after the solvent dries? Yes, absolutely. Yes, you can do this many times. Once you apply a nice layer of the colored pencils, you can apply your solvent to blend it out. Once it's dry, you can continue applying more of your colored pencils, which I will do today actually. As this is drying, I'm going to go grab that link for the paper that I'm using. I'll share that in the live chat there, and then this will be dry by the time I'm done doing that. And I'm going to apply another generous layer of black. Do some more blending. Like I said, I'm going to keep this part sort of empty for now. Do that on a separate occasion. It sort of looks weird chopped off like that. Maybe I'll bleed it out into the paper a little bit. Oh, yes, the Zest It is the solvent that I'm using. Also, if I happen to miss anybody's question, feel free to ask it again. I do my best not to miss anybody's questions, but sometimes I can get distracted, start rambling on about some stuff, and then I forget to look at chat. Appreciate all the questions, by the way. It's nice to get questions. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not already a member of the art club, there is a link for it in the description, and you have access to the reference photo and the line art. So I create, you can see the lines here. I create easy traceable line art for every project that we do because I focus on the coloring and painting aspect of the projects, not the drawing aspect. I do have a few drawing tutorials to help you establish some good drawing techniques. But for the most part, we just focus on the coloring and painting aspect of the projects. And so the line art can be very helpful in just kind of getting straight to the fun part. All right, almost done blending out this first layer. First layer always looks really rough. And then I'll go grab the link for the paper for anybody interested in the paper that I'm using. Right, so while that dries, and let me just reiterate how important it is to let it dry. When you use solvent, you want to make sure that you give your paper adequate time to dry, because if it's still wet when you try to apply, when it's still wet, when you try to apply your pencils over top, you can very easily destroy your paper, and you won't be able to fix that. Won't be able to fix your paper after that. Kind of mushiness. I use several different papers, but today I am using the Lennox 100. So I'm grabbing a link really quick for the exact paper. You do graphite charcoal portrait commissions. Any tips on pricing your work? So when I don't do commissions anymore, but I used to. And when I did commissions, my rule was always to price my work high enough that I got half of the people to say no. There's sort of this philosophy that I have with pricing work, and I kind of want people to say no, so I have less work to do. Okay, there's the link for the exact paper. I just put it in chat. Now, if that's not your not the approach that you want for your own commissions, that's perfectly fine. The other thing that you can do is, of course, shop around. Pretend that you are looking to get work commissioned and find other artists. Find other artists that are doing the same thing, that are offering the same service or similar service, and use their pricing as a guide. I usually would base my prices off of the size in the medium. What pastel do I use? I use the Stabilo Carbothello pastel pencils and the Jackson's handmade pastels. Give me 1 second. I'm going to sharpen my black pencil. Important to keep a nice sharp tip on your pencils. Makes coloring things in easier. And I'm just going to move on to layer number 2. I forget who it was that asked me if I add like indigo or whatnot to make my black like very dark. But as you can see, or as you will see, as I continue with this second layer, you'll notice just how dark the black gets. I think the Prismacolor black is definitely one of the darker black colored pencils. I'm using colored pencils. I'm using Prismacolor colored pencils right now. We're currently, the project we're doing in the art club for pastels is also a portrait, kind of a Victorian portrait as I decided to refer to it as. And it's a really fun project. It reminded me at the end of this stream, and I'll grab it really quick and I can show it to you, or you can look at it. You can look at the reference photo on my website. You don't have to like be signed up or anything to see the reference photo. You can see the list of projects that we're doing and that we have done by clicking on the tutorials on my website. Anybody else have any other questions? The more questions you ask, the more you learn, I suppose. You'll notice that I spin my pencil a lot. I do a couple pencil strokes and then I spin it. It's a good habit to get into. It's something that I don't even know where I got the habit, but I've been doing it for a very, very long time. And I don't think I've ever done it consciously. I just do it sort of out of comfort at this point, but it's a really good habit to get into because it keeps your pencils sharper for longer. And it was actually sort of funny to even mention the first time that I did mention it, because I've been doing it for so long, just purely habitually. But it really does come in handy to constantly be spinning your pencil. So here's layer 2. You can see how much darker the black appears with layer number 2. And it's not so much that the color itself gets darker, it's that more of the paper is covered, therefore less of the white spots. Like you can see all the white spots are showing through, although some of the white spots still do show through. It sometimes take 3, maybe even 4 layers occasionally to really cover up the spots of the paper, and then sometimes less with the use of solvent, because that's the thing with solvent. Solvent's good for blending colors, it really is, but I think where solvent is best is actually just covering the paper, because paper like this, for instance, the Linux 100, as I described, it is quite textury. Sort of has a deeper tooth grain to the paper that some people might just not like, which is understandable. Some people don't like the textured papers, but when they're more textured, those little grains are a bit deeper, and so they can be more difficult to fill in. Solvent simplifies that. Oh, that's funny, Linda. I'm sorry about. Yeah, I'm sorry about that first stream with the technical difficulties, but good to see you back. You have to know, doesn't baby oil ruin paper? Yes, indeed. Baby oil does ruin paper. There's been a number of viral videos over the past decade. It's so weird that I have to say decade, because I think the first time I came across it was maybe like 2012, the baby oil, and there's been a number of videos that people have made, like, does this blend colored pencil, and they'll like try a bunch of weird stuff, and it just doesn't make any sense to me why people would do that. But people have done stranger things for attention on the internet, so won't get too deep into that. But the other thing that's quite frustrating, in fact, is that if you buy polychromos pencils, hopefully they've changed it. But if you buy polychromos pencils, you get a little pamphlet that kind of discusses like a few techniques and tips on using colored pencils. And in their pamphlet, they recommend baby oil for blending. And when I saw that, I was just like in disbelief. I just couldn't believe that, one of the top colored pencil brands at the professional level. I mean, a lot of professional artists use polychromos pencils. I mean, even I use polychromos pencils. They're great pencils. And they recommend baby oil. I just completely dumbfounded by the stupidity in it. And so I just have to mention that every once in a while, that is not a thing, and it shouldn't be a thing. It should have never been a thing. Let's see, was there another question? Is using solvent the best way to burnish a colored pencil drawing? No, it's using solvent is just a way. I wouldn't say that there is a best way, because some people don't like to use solvent. A number of people don't like to use solvent. They don't like the smell. They don't like the way it looks. They don't like the loss of control, because solvent at the end of the day is a little difficult to control since it is a liquid, and sometimes that can get out of hand at times. So some people avoid it, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And you can get just as good results blending just through a long process of layering or by using solvent. Totally up to you. And I wouldn't say that the results will ever end up truly different between the two methods. What do I do when you feel like your sketch is not working even after many repeated tries? That's that's a tough question, because I don't sketch a lot of things anymore. And I know that when I did do a lot of just pure drawing, like, pencil and drawing stuff, I would find it frustrating when I felt like I couldn't be accurate in what I wanted to represent. Over the years, I've remedied that solution by um, finding drawing techniques that work really well. And one of the things that really helped me with my drawing and in turn my sketching accuracy is learning the grid method. And I always highly recommend, like, for people that want to focus on the sketching, drawing aspect of their art, because like I said, I don't focus on teaching the drawing aspect of art. I focus on the coloring aspect, coloring and painting aspect. But for the drawing aspect, I always stress the benefit of knowing the grid method, because with the grid method, you learn measurements. You sort of learn these measurements with your eyes that are just vertical and horizontal lines. And when you get efficient at the grid method, you can use less lines, and then you can just start using your eyes to establish the measurements. And that's what I do. I call it scaffolding. And when I do drawing tutorials, which isn't very often, maybe like once a year I do a drawing tutorial, I express the measurement procedure that I go through when I am drawing. But essentially it can be boiled down to utilizing what I call landmarks and anchor points, and just visualizing either a horizontal line or a vertical line. Say, for instance, like her eyebrow here, like the edge of her eyebrow, I would use that to determine like where the nostril would be. So if I go straight down, I can see that the nostril flare is a little bit to the right of what would be a vertical line. And like the corner of her mouth, if I go straight up, I can see that it's like the left side of her pupil there. So those are the types of measurements that I use when I'm drawing. And when you learn the grid method, you get efficient at thinking of things in vertical and horizontal lines and using those spatial measurements. And of the drawing tutorials that I have done, there's a few of them in the art club. I've heard great improvement from my students that took part in those drawing tutorials, and the use of the grid method and establishing the scaffolding techniques that I describe in those tutorials. I first learned the grid method when I was in the 7th or 8th grade, maybe both, 7th and 8th grade. And they were very eye-opening for me at the time. It seems kind of tedious to draw like a bunch of squares and stuff, but at the end of the day, you'll immediately find your drawing to be significantly more accurate just by using a few lines. Now look how deep that black is. How will a solvent react to Fixative? I'm not sure I know that word. Okay, so I think what you're asking is how will the solvent react if you use a sealant or a fixative? Fixative, that's the word. It doesn't. See, the solvents, if you use a real solvent, yeah, that's a really good question, because that's just another reason to bring up why you shouldn't use baby oil. Aside from the fact that baby oil is going to turn your paper yellow after probably a month or even less, depending on the temperature, it never dries. And if it never dries, you can't seal your artwork. So don't use baby oil. But the thing with solvent is that it does dry, and it dries almost immediately, or after just a minute or two, because it evaporates. And so whether you use this zested solvent or if you use like a terpenoid type of solvent that is generally used in oil painting, like gamma salt or mineral spirits, those solvents evaporate very quickly, and so they never really soak into the paper. They sort of just float on top and then evaporate. You can almost see, well, you can't really see, it's too dark, but if you're using solvent, you can make a brush stroke and you can see it almost evaporate immediately after you lift the brush off the paper. So your work is immediately able to be sprayed with a fixative after it, a couple minutes of it drying. So the short answer is it doesn't react at all. That's a really good question. Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten that question before. And I've been doing this a while. Never gotten that question. I've never even considered that question. That's how good of a question that is. Appreciate that. Yeah, you're welcome. Take note of this area. You can still see the little dots. Actually, I suppose I can zoom in a little bit more than what I am. There we go. It's good. So in this part where I haven't blended out the second layer, just look at the difference, like these little textured dots and stuff. And then look over here. And that's just 2 layers. Not even really a difficult thing to do. And it already looks pretty cool. You never used fixative on colored pencils. A lot of fixatives that you use for graphite actually are universal and can be used on colored pencils. You'd want to check the brand, but I know I know that a lot of them can be. But otherwise, there are some specifics, some specific brands that are made just for colored pencils. I think Spectrafix is one of the popular brands. You can usually see, like, if you check out like the Fixatives in your local art store, or if you order your supplies online, um, I would say most of the time it will say like graphite and colored pencils. Like, it will specify that it's okay to use for both. Graphite is the really easy, like, graphite charcoal is the really easy medium to spray with fixative. And a lot of people over the years have just used regular old hairspray for graphite and charcoal, because there's not a lot to those mediums that require like special chemicals or whatnot for them to be protected. Colored pencils a little bit different because they have the wax and oil in them, and so you got to be a little careful not to use a fixative that has some kind of solvent that would sort of melt those ingredients. And in most cases, those same solvents that won't react with the colored pencils, they also won't react with graphite or charcoal. So they kind of just use them interchangeably. So I'd say it's pretty likely that any solvent you can use with colored pencils, you can also just use with graphite. And I would imagine most brands of fixative will market their fixatives in that way. They'll market it as you can use those with colored pencils and also graphite and charcoal. Makes sense to me. I haven't used fixative on my colored pencil work in a long time. I only ever spray my colored pencil work if it's a commission, or if somebody buys the original artwork, then I'll spray it before I ship it off to them. Yeah, yeah, most likely you can just look for graphite fixative. How do I deal with art block? Um, I have a very old, funny video addressing such a situation. But really, my best advice when you are struggling to feel creative or do something creative, draw, paint, or whatever, is I just recommend you start anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And what I've always recommended over the years is a banana. Just draw a banana. Don't even think about it. Don't, because I don't feel like it's the act itself of creating that people get a block from. I think that people get the block of what it is that they want to create. And so just cut that part out. Just remove that section completely and draw a banana or paint a banana. Do anything. Just draw it. Well, thank you, Chrissy, so much for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Yes, absolutely. Always happy to share as many helpful tips and knowledge that I can. My favorite thing to do. Alrighty, well there's those layers. I need to give that a minute to dry, but as you can see, it's very, very black. And I didn't add any indigo or whatever other colors that people recommend adding to make black look really dark. However, what I will be doing is I'll be using some of the 1056 gray to transition some of the lighter colors. And of course, I'll be doing some more blue in the highlights. So some more of the blue. But I gotta give it some time to dry adequately. Always best to play it safe and give it more time to dry than what you might think. And in the meantime, I think what I'll do is I'll sharpen my black pencil. I only use a little bit of solvent, so it shouldn't take too long to dry. So again, this is the 1102 color. Have I tried using black marker as a base? Yes, I really like using markers as base colors for colored pencil work. I don't do it anymore. Like I don't do it as a tutorial. My drawing lessons are all, I keep them purely pastel or purely colored pencil because I want them to be as accessible to everybody as possible. But on my own projects, yeah, colored pencils and markers are, well, really, as far as the mixed mediums go, they're the only, like, that's the only mixed medium that that I participate in because I think they're just like perfect. Colored pencils and markers are absolutely perfect with each other. And so utilizing markers to create a base layer, not only do you cover up the paper faster by doing that, but you also enrich the colors. Colored pencils just they sit on top of markers so boldly when you use markers as a base color. Okay, Chrissy. Thank you for coming by and hanging out and the super chat. Hope you have a good night. Thank you so much. Always appreciate your support. You see how that blue just enriches the color tone of the leather headgear. What kind of markers? Alcohol-based markers. I've used a couple different brands of alcohol-based markers, but with the base layer of colored pencils, I mean, you can get away with just about any brand of alcohol-based marker. All right, now I'm going to use some of the 1056. And this is just going to be used again like a transitionary color for like the really, really dark black and the brighter colors. And in some cases, you might not even be able to really see what it is that I'm changing with this color, because it is very close to, very, very close to the black in value. And, you know, cameras don't really do the best job at distinguishing those values. Alrighty, let's see, I'm gonna go back with my black pencil now. Just touch up a little bit of the edges and details and whatnot. Almost done for the day. Right, and I'm just going to do another very quick blend with the solvent before utilizing my white pencil. White pencil will do the last little touch-ups on the highlights. And I just want to sort of smooth out some of these transitions a little bit where I added some of that gray and that extra blue. Just kind of smooth out those colors a little bit more. Make those transitions blended together a bit better. And I will be back tomorrow to work more on this project. I think tomorrow finish up this center part of her headgear, and then her choker. So she has the same material, same like leathery material of her outfit as like a necklace choker thing. So finish up all of that tomorrow. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed today's live lesson. Again, usually these projects are exclusive to the art club, but I was just in the mood to make this one public for everyone. This whole project will not be public though, so strongly encourage you to sign up for the art club. And also a quick reminder that the live critique session will be this Friday. So be sure to join the Unmask family Facebook group. I have a link for that in the description also. And share your artwork there on the announcement, and I will do a critique of your artwork this Friday. There is no, the top of the hat stops there. So there's nothing there. Nothing that, here's how much you missed. See, you missed none of it. You missed none of it. I'll stay zoomed out a little bit though. Okay, Alicia, you take care. All right, let's just finish up with the highlights with the white pencil. And there we go. So that is going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for coming by and hanging out. Be sure to catch tomorrow's stream, same time. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Peace.